This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Caroline Bargout. Janet Stewart is off tonight. The provincial and federal governments are each committing $20 million to search a landfill north of Winnipeg for the remains of 2 First Nations women. The news was shared as family members and community leaders sat down with 3 levels of government to talk next steps and funding. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
Families and First Nations leaders have been waiting for a financial commitment from the Manitoba government and Ottawa to search the Prairie Green landfill, and today they got it during a meeting here at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs building. The province and federal government are each committing $20 million to the search. Premier Wab Kinew said last month he was confident a search would start this year. The most recent report pegged the total cost at $90 million or more. It's not clear where the remaining $50 million would come from. Cambria Harris, the daughter of one of the victims, says she's relieved and hopeful her mom will be found.
So that's a total of $40 million to search the landfill. Wab Kinew, in his words, said that we are going to search every cubic meter of cell 13.
Police believe the remains of 39-year-old Morgan Harris and 26-year-old Mercedes Myron were taken to the landfill north of Winnipeg after they were killed in the spring of 2022. A man is slated to go to trial on 4 counts of first-degree murder at the end of April in their deaths and the deaths of Rebecca Contois and an unidentified victim known as Buffalo Woman. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to the charges.
Search the landfill!
Earlier this month, protesters, along with family members of the victims, called on Kinew to fulfill his campaign promise to search the landfill. A report said a search could begin near the end of October if funding was in place by February 1st. Kinew says in a statement, "While we don't know if the search will be successful, we have to try. That's our commitment to these families." Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kathy Merrick described today's meeting as historic. She says next steps will be figuring out when the search will start.
Today's a very bittersweet day. It's a sense of relief, but yet work needs to be done. And it's timing.
Winnipeg's Mayor Scott Gillingham was also part of today's meeting, but a spokesperson says there were no commitments from the city for money or land for a search facility at this time. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province and feds have also committed a total of $700,000 for trauma-informed mental health supports for the families and community during the upcoming criminal trial, which begins at the end of April. Manitoba's financial picture is looking worse. The province is even deeper in the hole than it expected a few months ago. CBC's Ian Fraze has the details.
A shortfall of this size is almost unheard of.
The deficit is now projected at nearly $2 billion. It is the worst ever non-pandemic deficit in Manitoba's history.
Finance Minister Adrian Saleh says the PC should take responsibility.
We know that the previous government hid the true picture of Manitoba's books, and our administration is dealing with those inherited challenges.
For one, he's accusing the Tories of overspending on health care. Saleh has ordered a review of most of the province's health authorities.
I think these audits demonstrate that we are concerned about the direction of health spending and that we want to see action to remedy that, and that it's not acceptable to see these increasing costs go up without better outcomes for Manitobans.
He's also blaming the PCs for failing to budget for lawsuit settlements, though he wouldn't give examples. And he says the Tories wrongly assumed Manitoba Hydro would make money even with a dry summer. While Saleh took a lot of shots at the PCs, he wouldn't answer how an NDP government would make good on its promise to balance the budget in 4 years. The province must cut costs, raise revenues, or some mix of the two.
Our government will show that we can balance the need to invest in priority areas while we find that path to balance.
The PCs say they properly budgeted for everything while in government. Manitoba's deficit estimate has jumped from $1.6 billion last September to $2 billion in December. The NDP was elected in the fall.
The numbers have definitely gotten worse since the NDP have taken over. There's no doubt about that.
Despite the fiscal pressure, Salas says Manitobans will be very happy with the province's budget released on April 2nd. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
We have an update on the health of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. She's announced that she has an undisclosed type of cancer. Catherine appeared in a video released today to talk about the diagnosis and her treatment. Journalist Anna Cunningham has more from London.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally.
This video statement that was released by Catherine, the Princess of Wales, will have come as quite the shock to the public here. There has been a lot of speculation, there has been concern about the princess's health, and there's also been a huge amount of misinformation being spread about on social media since she was last seen, which was on Christmas Day when she attended church with other members of the royal family in Sandringham. We knew that she had undergone abdominal surgery back in January, but Kensington Palace initially said that this was non-cancerous. Now we have been given more details directly from the princess herself. It was a very personal statement. She said that cancer cells had been found after the surgery. She also said that she was fit and well and that she's now undergoing a treatment of chemotherapy.
As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay.
We have had reaction from the monarch, King Charles, indeed her father-in-law, who himself is also undergoing treatment for cancer. In it, he said that he was so proud of Catherine and the courage that she had shown in speaking out as she did. At this point, this will put the lid really on the speculation and the wild misinformation that has been out there about the Princess of Wales. But also what was very interesting in this statement was that she reached out to other cancer patients, people who are also receiving diagnosis and having treatment themselves.
For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
It was quite a poignant moment and quite something to hear from a member of the royal family. Anna Cunningham for CBC News, London.
Last month, a CBC News investigation found workers at several homes housing high-risk youth in the care of Child and Family Services were supplying kids with unauthorized cannabis. Now, after the province cut ties with the company, some employees are speaking out, saying the government moved too quickly. The I-Team's Kristen Annabelle has that story.
Abigail Chappelle came to the steps of the Legislative Building to protest the government's decision to move kids in care out of Spirit Rising House homes. She has spent the last few years working for the company, which operates 2 specialized group homes and 9 foster homes. At her home right now are 3 kids, siblings who are finally together after waiting years to be reunited. Now, with the news the province is shutting them down, she doesn't know what is next for them.
We're unsure. We have nothing. Honestly, nothing. They've came multiple times to the house saying they're being apprehended, but they're not telling us anything. They're not telling the kids anything. Nothing at all.
These workers say the province didn't talk to the kids before they made this call, and they should have worked on a solution to keep them in their homes.
Absolute emotional turmoil. These kids are being ripped from our houses, and for no good reason. There's no placements for them.
Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine decided to remove the kids last month after her department discovered they were giving the cannabis to kids as a means of harm reduction. But several current and former staff members say it was being used to numb the kids. Fontaine said about 30% of the 34 kids in these homes have been removed. She doesn't know when the rest will move.
Imagine for a moment that I, as the minister, knew that cannabis was being distributed to youth, some as young as 13, 14, 15. and I did nothing about that.
The owners of Spirit Rising House declined our request for an interview, but in a statement said they're also worried about the kids. As for the 3 siblings, Southeast Child and Family Services tells us they won't be separating them. Kristen Annabelle, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A low-income West End apartment building that was plagued with problems is now for sale. It comes months after residents were forced out of the Adanac apartments after failed safety inspections. But housing advocates worry the sale will mean even fewer spots for those who desperately need them. CBC's Brittany Greenslade has more.
It's a building that's been riddled with issues, multiple homicides, fires, and ongoing safety concerns.
It was terrible, and the building has almost become notorious within the neighborhood for gangs and drug dealers and violence and fires.
Now, the Adanac apartments on Sargent Avenue are up for sale. The 46-unit property is listed for $2.6 million after going into court-appointed receivership in November, which comes as little surprise to some, like Marion Willis.
When you're housing this particular population, okay, you're going to face many more challenges than if you were just housing sort of ordinary mainstream people.
Last August, residents were given hours to vacate the building after city inspectors ordered it closed due to a failed fire safety inspection and multiple violations. Willis helped rehouse some of those tenants. She sees the sale as a much-needed opportunity for change.
That's a good building that could be used to house some of our higher-risk people out there, people that need to get off the street and get into housing. You know, well, who are those people? Well, a lot of those people are struggling with mental health and are deep into addiction.
The Right to Housing Coalition says there's a major shortage of social housing.
We can't afford to be losing any housing units right now that are affordable to low-income people.
The group says this is a chance for the province to step in with the weight of its wallet.
It's a perfect opportunity for our governments to pick up some housing that was affordable in our market and turn it into a really good quality place to live.
But Willis says it can't be just housing. There needs to be a fulsome plan, and services must be a part of it.
That can change the story of the Adanac's relationship in that neighborhood, but moreover, can change the story we tell about how we're addressing mental health, addictions, homelessness, crime.
And a chance to make a real impact. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Portage in Maine will reopen to pedestrians next summer, but how that happens has yet to be decided. The city will hire a consultant to come up with a design. One expert tells CBC News it could involve restricting access to the intersection. Ahmed Shalaby is a professor of transportation engineering at the University of Manitoba. He says good design can reduce conflict between people and cars.
And what needs to happen is we need to look at what restrictions, if any, need to be introduced. This includes things like turning movement restrictions on certain types of vehicles, on heavy trucks, for example, and time restrictions during peak hours.
The deadline for the opening is July 1st of next year. Winnipeggers have fewer hoops to jump through to get some home improvement projects done. City Council approved bylaw changes eliminating the need for development permits for 25 types of construction projects. Development permits limit how land can be used as well as the size and location of structures. The exemptions include gazebos, detached garages, play structures, and private swimming pools or hot tubs. Most projects still require building permits and must follow other rules like size and setback requirements. A full list of all the development permit exemptions can be found on the city's website. Work is beginning in the St. Adolphe area on a section of pipeline that brings fuel to Winnipeg. Imperial Oil shut down the pipeline after an inspection raised structural concern about a section just south of the community. The company says it will drill horizontally under the river to reach that part of the pipeline. The arm of Reshot waived its noise bylaw so Imperial can work 24 hours a day. Spokesperson Carrie Scobie says the company will try to keep noise from the drilling equipment to a minimum.
Our goal is to be, the least disruptive as we possibly can be. We're working very closely with our neighbors to, let them know about the maintenance work, sort of the time frame, all of those sorts of things. So we're going to keep in close contact with everybody that lives close by.
Drilling operations will begin towards the end of April. Work on the pipeline will last about 3 months. Scobie says soil in the area will be analyzed as part of that work. The trial of a Winnipeg father accused of killing his infant son in 2020 wrapped up today. Matthew Moreau pleaded not guilty to manslaughter in the deaths of 3-month-old Maven Gillis Moreau. CBC's Caitlin Gowrluck was in court for the last day of his trial, and warning, this story has details about the death of a baby.
Lawyers made closing arguments Friday morning in the trial of 34-year-old Matthew Moreau. Moreau is charged with manslaughter in the death of his 3-month-old son, Maven. The infant died from head trauma in 2020 after going into medical distress while Moreau was watching him. Prosecutors say Moreau was the only one who could have caused the deadly injury and a broken leg, because the baby was fine when his mother left him with Moreau that evening. But Moreau's lawyers say just because he's the one who found the baby in distress doesn't mean he's the one who did it. His lawyers argue that because experts who testified couldn't pinpoint what time those injuries happened, they could have been from earlier in the day when the baby was with his mom. The judge reserved her decision in Moreau's trial until next month. Caitlin Gowrluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The operator of Winnipeg Personal Care Home is being sued for negligence. The family of a woman with dementia who suffocated alone in a room after wrapping herself in a curtain is suing Rivera and Extendicare. Irene Fontaine's family says the 63-year-old didn't get adequate supervision from staff at Beacon Hill Lodge when she died in January of last year. The care home operators are being sued for $110,000, plus costs and any other damages the court finds. Winnipeg police are also investigating. None of the claims in the lawsuit have been tested in court. The Public Health Agency of Canada is reporting another Salmonella outbreak involving reptiles. This one is caused by exposure to geckos. Many of the people who got sick reported having direct or indirect contact with the little lizards or their environment. There have been 35 confirmed cases in this outbreak between March 2020 and this past January, including 2 here in Manitoba. 5 people have been hospitalized. No one has died. Health officials are reminding people to practice good hand hygiene and wash up after coming in contact with geckos or their habitat. On Tuesday, the Public Health Agency reported a Salmonella outbreak related to snakes and feeder mice. Today is World Water Day. Students from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation chose today to launch a new line of merchandise at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. CBC's Zubina Ahmed was there.
Protecting the rights of water and recognizing its sacredness. This water ceremony was a tribute to Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, which is the source of Winnipeg's drinking water. Gathered today were a group of students from Harvey Red Sky Memorial School who launched a new line of merchandise. The grade 6 to 8 students designed reusable water bottles, tumblers, and stickers with their teacher Andrea Red Sky.
We started this whole endeavor off as a fundraiser for a year-end trip, and it turned into something much more. I'm really proud of my students that they chose to continue to do this project, but also to sell those water bottles, tumblers, and stickers to raise awareness about Shoal Lake 40 and Winnipeg's drinking water.
Red Sky says what started as a fundraiser led to developing the kids' entrepreneurial skills.
They're just flying out the door.
100% of product purchases will go towards Harvey Red Sky Memorial School Future Business Leaders Project.
It's a really good way of encouraging kids to stay on track as well, teaches them about money. They come in and exchange money from the little bank that I've got, like a teller. I have a little tell, and they'll bring in their toonies and loonies and exchange it for bills. So it's really cool. They have a little bank as well.
Chief Kevin Red Sky says this merchandise also creates awareness among Winnipeggers about where the clean water comes from.
The tumblers and the stickers that are going for sale. There's a barcode on those items there that put you straight through to the Shoal Lake Number 40 website. And there you can educate, learn the struggles Shoal Lake 40 endured over 100 years, and just creating that awareness and education for not only Winnipeggers, but our own community and across Canada.
Red Sky says many Winnipeg businesses and organizations have already partnered with the students to display the merchandise at their offices. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk is here for our first look at weather. Riley, I have to say that today feels nicer than the rest of the week. And it's not just because it's Friday. Like, it feels nicer.
Yeah, the sun was really nice. I got out for a little walk on my break this afternoon.
We get a break? No, I'm kidding.
And the sun really did feel really nice, even though it was a bit chillier, and that's what we're expecting through the weekend. Different story south of the border, though, Caroline, which I'll talk about as we look at satellite radar. And you can see a mainly sunny sky across Manitoba, a little bit of cloud cover along the Hudson Bay coast. This giving a little bit of flurry activity and some blowing snow to places like Churchill and Shamattawa. Otherwise, carbon copy of pretty much yesterday across southern Manitoba. Mainly sunny conditions and below seasonal temperature-wise. But as we get into the weekend, a bit of a different story ahead. Looking at the day on Saturday here, I've started to pull out the map here so you can get a sense of this here. So we start sunny across Manitoba, but as we get into the day on Sunday, you'll start to see a little bit of cloud starting to creep in. This ahead of a Colorado low, headed toward North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota, really skirting along the 49th parallel. So not so much other than a chance of flurries in places like Emerson, Morden, Winkler, and Sprague, but more of an organized system south of the border and into northwestern Ontario. In fact, this has the National Weather Service south of the border warning of the potential of impossible driving conditions in North and South Dakota through Sunday into Monday. We'll run the model runs here in a sec. This could give us a few flurries even in the Red River Valley through the later part of Monday, but pretty much gives Manitoba a miss. So running the numbers here south of the border, you can see the forecast modeling, and this has been improving through the day today, suggesting a swath of about 15 to 30 centimeters of snow through North and South Dakota and into Minnesota. Minneapolis even slated to get that 30 centimeter mark. So if you have any travel plans for spring break south of the border, yeah, you might want to give those a miss, especially Sunday and into the day on Monday for sure. So looking at temperatures right now, -7s and -8s across much of southern Manitoba, into the -20s once again along the Hudson Bay coast, and -4 this hour in Morden Winkler. Northwest winds have seen a few gusts up to about that 40 mark this afternoon. Otherwise, we've been seeing northwest winds at about 20 through the afternoon here in Winnipeg. Pressure is continuing to rise, -15 overnight tonight. Northeast winds do lighten up as we get towards that midnight hour at about 10 kilometers an hour. Waking up to fairly light winds in the morning, -12, and by the afternoon hitting a high of -5 degrees with southwest winds. We do see winds picking up a little bit into Sunday as that cloud from that low starts to move in, -2. Some late day flurries Monday into early Tuesday, and clearing as we get into Wednesday, Carolina. Temperatures still a little bit stubbornly below seasonal, but we do have a warm up in the 7-day forecast.
Perfect. Thanks, Riley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dozens of people have been killed and about 100 wounded after gunmen stormed a rock concert in Russia and fired at the crowd. We'll have that story after the break. Russian authorities say about 40 people are dead and more than 140 wounded after an attack on a concert hall on the edge of Moscow. It happened as a rock concert was about to begin. Authorities say several gunmen burst in and shot at audience members. Witnesses say the attackers also threw explosives and triggered a blaze. It's unclear if people were trapped in the burning building. Russian authorities are treating it as terrorism. We're now hearing that the group ISIS posted a statement on social media claiming responsibility. That has not been independently verified. Russian forces have fought ISIS militants in Syria. More than 1 million Ukrainians are without power tonight after Russia launched a massive strike on the country's electricity sector. Ukrainian officials are calling it the most brutal attack on infrastructure since the war began. Dominic Velitis has the details and the implications.
According to the Ukrainian Air Force, Russia fired 88 missiles and 63 Iranian-made Shahed drones in these attacks, which focused on 3 regions: Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia. And what's interesting is that about 40% of them managed to evade Ukraine's air defences. Now, that's a worse ratio than usual, and probably down to the fact that on this occasion, a large number of ballistic missiles were used, which are harder to take out. We're told at least 5 people were killed, including at least 1 person at the Dnipro hydroelectric station, which is home to Ukraine's largest dam. But the company which runs it says there's no risk of a breach. So that is some reassuring news. That said, these attacks have left some 1.2 million people in at least 4 regions without power, with Kharkiv the worst hit. Around 700,000 people there now without power. As a result, Ukraine's energy system had to receive power supplies from neighbouring Poland, Romania and Slovakia. Both sides in this conflict now increasingly targeting each other's energy infrastructure. This year alone, Ukraine has hit more than 10 major Russian oil refineries and depots, normally with drones. Indeed, the United States has now reportedly urged Ukraine to stop doing so over fears that they could provoke retaliation, as we've clearly seen today, but also that they could drive up global oil prices. Both sides, though, now view each other's energy infrastructure as fair game, and for 2 main reasons. The first is strategic in nature. It's about hitting your adversary's ability to wage war. Things like tanks, infantry vehicles and fighter planes obviously need fuel, so anything that produces that, oil refineries and the like, is considered a target. But of course, there's also an economic reason. Russia's oil refineries are a key source of income for Moscow, and that money is used to wage war, to fight and kill Ukrainians. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
Last month's death of Putin critic Alexei Navalny has added new urgency to the case of another person held in a Russian prison. Paul Whelan is a business executive holding U.S., Canadian and British citizenship. He made a surprise call to the CBC's Briar Stewart in London. Here's that story.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for calling back. We got the chance to speak to Paul Whelan from the remote Russian penal colony where he's serving a 16-year sentence for espionage.
It's quite obvious now that Russia took me hostage.
We were preparing for another interview when Whelan suddenly called from prison. He was arrested during a visit to Moscow in 2018 and convicted during a secretive trial. The U.S. government considers him wrongfully detained.
Do you feel more concerned for your safety now than before?
I do. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's high time my government's got me home.
He's worried because of what happened to opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who died in a Russian prison last month. The Kremlin denies claims from Russian officials that it was responsible. But President Vladimir Putin did reveal this week that he had agreed to release Navalny in a prisoner swap, a deal which could have reportedly also freed Whelan, along with U.S. journalist Evan Gershkovich, in an exchange for Vadim Krasikov, a Russian national who's serving a life sentence for murder in Germany.
How do you think Navalny's death affects the prospect of you being released in a prisoner swap?
It's a road bump. I think that the Russians didn't want to let Navalny go. They've been changing the goalposts since day one.
This news report that aired on Russian state media shows Whelan at the penal colony, where he works 6 days a week making clothing for state workers. Earlier this week, Canada's ambassador to Russia visited him at the penal colony, and officials say they're watching the case closely.
Anything that the Putin regime does that threatens a Canadian citizen is something of concern to us.
It's unfortunate what happened with Navalny, but it also shows that this is what Russia does.
And after 5 years, Whelan fears he could be running out of time. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Turning to the latest from the Israel-Hamas war, the U.S. is once again trying to dissuade Israel from a planned offensive in the city of Rafah in Gaza. Israel says it won't stop its fight against Hamas. It comes as yet another UN ceasefire resolution was vetoed today. CBC's Chris Reyes has the details.
In Tel Aviv, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was met with cheers of support from locals calling for an immediate hostage deal. Blinken is back in Israel, meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other leaders. The visit is his sixth to the region since the October 7th Hamas attacks, underscoring American support for its ally. But as the war in Gaza closes in on 6 months, the conversations between the two are evolving.
We share the goal of ensuring Israel's long-term security. As we've said, though, a major military ground operation in Rafah is not the way to do it. It risks killing more civilians.
On that, Netanyahu said soon after that while Israel hopes for U.S. support, it's also willing to go at it alone. The Israeli Prime Minister said there was no way to defeat Hamas without entering Rafah. The exchange between the two leaders happened as the UN Security Council voted on a U.S. resolution that expressed its strongest support yet for a ceasefire.
This is a strong resolution, and it does more than just call for a ceasefire. It helps to make a ceasefire possible.
The resolution failed to pass, vetoed by Algeria and 2 permanent members of the Council, Russia and China.
The final text remains ambiguous and does not call for an immediate ceasefire, nor does it even provide an answer to the question of realizing a ceasefire in the short term.
Russia condemned the U.S. for failing to include in the text opposition to further Israeli military action in Gaza.
The U.S. draft contains an effective green light for Israel to mount a military operation in Rafah.
Russia and China simply did not want to vote for a resolution that was penned by the United States because it would rather see us fail than to see this council succeed.
On Saturday, the UN Security Council is expected to vote on another resolution with stronger calls for a ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Minister is expected in Washington next week. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Measles cases are rising globally. At least 31 have been reported so far this year across Canada, and that has many Canadians looking to get vaccinated. But higher demand for the vaccine is leading to fears of shortages. And as Lauren Pelly explains, the shot may be unavailable even if you try to pay for it.
Really just trying to keep my family safe.
Brian Harvey asked his family doctor for a measles shot before his next work trip.
And was told to go to a travel clinic and basically pay for it myself.
Those shots can cost around $75 at private clinics. Even so, this company, which operates out of Ontario and Quebec, says recent demand is unprecedented.
Typically, because we don't give out as many, we don't carry as much. Now, as we see the trends going on, we've started to load up a little bit. But a lot of vaccines are reserved for the public sector.
And so they're now trying to stock up.
There are concerns that from a private sector perspective that we're not going to be able to procure enough.
That's because the 2 major drug makers supplying measles vaccines in Canada have both posted shortage alerts this month. Merck and GSK each say it's thanks to higher demand. While private vaccine suppliers could be impacted, Health Canada assured CBC News that the companies can still supply public immunization campaigns, such as routine vaccines for children. Even so, some family doctors say they're being cautious with their vaccine supply as well.
We have to be judicious. We have a resource that is limited, and we have to be thoughtful in the way that we use it.
We're not actively reaching out to everybody in our practice. You can imagine how overwhelmed family medicine would get if we decided all of a sudden to just focus all of our attention on everybody's measles vaccine status.
But with measles cases rising in March break travel destinations like the U.S., even more Canadians could be asking for a shot. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
2 weeks ahead of a total eclipse, a southern Ontario tourist site is preparing for a sightseer invasion. We'll have that story after the break. Niagara Falls is no stranger to throngs of visitors, but an upcoming attraction could be a whole new experience. The falls will be one of the prime sites to view the total eclipse on April 8th. CBC's Katie Nicholson reports.
What are you pairing with the eclipse?
Gregory Vircha's Eclipse and Sips wine event sold out almost as soon as he floated the idea. In this vast tank, Merlot ready to be served on the big day, but he's worried his small winery will be overrun.
So for us, that's always an issue with, say, washroom capacities, with parking spots and things like this. So we're actually hiring or we're bringing in extra staff. So this is where we're going to try and set up for the eclipse.
The Niagara region is in the path of totality. It'll have one of the best views of April 8th's solar eclipse.
Everything is here that you could possibly need.
Prompting skyrocketing demands for hotel rooms at Super Bowl prices, some more than $1,000.
Most of the folks that are here are from the United States, but we do have some from overseas.
David Carroll oversees 3 hotels on the American side, 3 on the Canadian side, including this one. All pretty much sold out.
I've been in the business a long time. I'm shocked the amount of people that are coming up to this part of the United States and Canada to see an eclipse for 4 minutes. I'm really surprised. But there's a calling for it, so they're excited.
So I tested these during the day and I couldn't see a thing.
And perhaps no one is excited as the mayor of Niagara Falls.
We're preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. We know there could end up being upwards of 1 million people in the city.
The last time the Falls saw anything near that number was when Nick Valenda crossed the Horseshoe Falls on a tightrope. 150,000 showed up. The city has ordered tens of thousands of certified eclipse viewing glasses, but still expects to run out.
It's kind of like get a bigger boat in Jaws, and that's kind of where we are. We're like, get more glasses.
Police have been coordinating on a safety plan, anticipating hours of gridlock throughout the region.
There is a mathematical number, so how many cars can be on the road in the Niagara region. If we overwhelm that, there's only so much we can do.
They're asking people to plan ahead, make sure they have food, water, and medication with them. Of course, if the weather is anything like this miserable March day, all that planning, the anticipation, the worry, and those glasses for nothing. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Niagara Falls.
And weather specialist Riley Lachuk is here. Riley, it feels like every time there's an event, like a meteor shower or something, it's so cloudy you can't see it here in Manitoba.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that right now. I've done a little bit of a breakdown on the climatology of April the 8th. Okay. I know it's still a little ways out forecast-wise, whether it's going to be sunny or cloudy, but we can take a look at what the past has been like to maybe give us a bit of a glimpse. So looking at the climatology for this, once again, we're expecting about a 50-50 eclipse here, so a partial eclipse here in Manitoba, in the southern part of the province at least. But if we look at the last 10 April the 8th, based on the observations at Winnipeg's airport, the Environment Canada station there, yeah, we have about a 50-50 chance of having a sunny sky versus some cloudy skies. So yes, we did have a few years over the past 10 years where we did have a mainly sunny sky, but yeah, we did have a good chunk of those where we did see some clouds and some precipitation as well. Average high of those years, about 7.6 degrees, and yeah, about a 25% chance of seeing some precipitation. So remains to be seen what the weather will be like. We'll have a better chance of looking at that in the coming weeks or so, closer to that April 8th. Here's where we got to today, -6 in Winnipeg and Portage La Prairie. That was my high temperature for today. -4 in Melita, -3 in Winkler and Churchill, only getting up to -21 this afternoon. Temperatures around the region, -7 in Steinbach, -5 in Morris, St. Laurent at -10 degrees right now on the water, -8s in both Portage and Brandon, as well as in Swan River. And northern Manitoba, looking at temperatures a bit cooler along the Hudson Bay coast again, -22s, 23s in Tuduli Lake and Churchill, -12 in the Pas. Your forecast tonight, yes, we're looking at mainly clear skies across much of the province this evening. Few passing clouds maybe as we get through the overnight period tonight. Temperatures sinking close to -20 in Westman, clear and -15 in Winnipeg, and encroaching on -30 once again in northern Manitoba, waking up to -28 in Lynn Lake, -26 in Thompson. By the time we hit noon, mainly sunny skies, -12 in both the Pas and Grand Rapids, and -11 in Thompson through the afternoon tomorrow. Waking up close to -20 in Westman tomorrow morning, even a -23 in Roblin. By noon, temperatures right around the -10 mark, and hitting a high tomorrow in Winnipeg and Portage of -5 degrees, and mainly sunny skies with a little bit of cloud starting to build in to the southwest. Your 7-day forecast coming up.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Coming up, what does it take to be drafted to the CFL? We'll follow the lone Manitoban who's looking to catch the eye of the teams at this year's Combine. That's after the break. About 100 national and global prospects are in Winnipeg for the CFL Combine. It's an event that showcases their skills to CFL teams and explains why they deserve a shot at being drafted into the league. Now, participants at the event show off in drills like the bench press and vertical jump. One of them is a University of Manitoba receiver, A.K. Gassama. He is the lone Manitoban in this year's event. He overcame many obstacles to get here, including surviving the civil war in Sierra Leone. He spoke to reporters at the Fort Garry Hotel yesterday during the Combine event.
The week's been great, honestly. Interacting with a lot of different coaches, a lot of different personnel. There's a lot of, elite athletes out here, so just grateful to be around in the position. I think everybody's kind of ready to just go in and, finally execute all the work that they've been putting in. I think the interview is probably one of the most important parts because everybody here is elite athletes, right? They've done their job. 80% of this interview is complete, so now they want to know who you are as a person.
Next up, number 2, A.K. Gassama.
I think one thing that was kind of surprising, I guess maybe it's the environment that we're in, is, you walk out on the stage and you got all these coaches who are just kind of just eyeing you down there. So, you got to be on your best behavior, looking good, and you're kind of thinking, what is everyone looking? So I just try to look past them all, don't look them in the eyes, and just like another day. Honestly, I wanted to bench a little bit more. I think certain times just you have a plan that you're going with, and it doesn't always end up like that, but I know that my game isn't about how many bench presses I can put up. It's, it's what I do on the field and creating separation. So I'm really looking forward to go out there and show the coaches what my skill sets are.
5 reps. Next up, number 2, A.K. Gassama.
The vertical was a little interesting. I thought that I was going to jump a little bit higher, but, I think how it goes is very relative, right? So, to my size and to my stature, and I know that you can see that I can jump, and I think a lot of coaches did see that, so, I am happy with that. But I know that, the numbers that I've trained, I feel like everybody who trains for these combines, you have these numbers, you have these things that you hit in training, and, you get on stage, and sometimes it doesn't go that way.
34.5 inches.
I spoke with Winnipeg and Saskatchewan earlier this morning, and I think it was a really good process with both groups. Both teams were extremely cool, super awesome, and I think I got a lot of insight. For a lot of coaches, they're going to look at me, they're going to look at my stature. That's always been a thing, but I don't think that's my game. My game is all about speed and creating separation. So when it comes to those things, I think it's best that you know yourself. Each and every one of us are here for a reason, and I think you got to stay to that and not trying to be anybody else but yourself.
2 reps.
My biggest goal this week is showing coaches and scouts and proving to myself that, the work that I put in has allowed me to be that complete receiver. I'm just grateful, because I think no matter what it is, just life has just been a bunch of opportunities and a bunch of choices. And I think, just continuing to stick with those choices that I've made has led me to this path here. So I'm just grateful that, I'm being recognized for the work I've put in. Coming from where I come from, it's a dream until you're here now, and now you have a chance to make it reality. I think I really just want to take advantage in every moment.
Well, we wish him the best of luck. The Combine event runs until Sunday and can be streamed on the CFL's website. And look at these cute critters. Riley Lachuk is back with your last check on the forecast. Stay with us.
So here's a look at your Saturday day planner. We're looking at mainly sunny skies. To start the day, -12 first thing in the morning, north winds at 10, -10 by the time we hit noon, and warming up to -5 by the time we hit the afternoon tomorrow. Southwest winds lighter than we saw through the day today. A little bit breezy today. We'll see cloud building in for Sunday. Northeast winds gust to 40 with some late day flurries on Monday. Highs of -2 for Sunday and Monday. Flurries and a cold front sweeps through -6 for Tuesday. Clouds depart to sunnier skies and temperatures close to the freezing mark to end next week. A species conservation program in Bolivia, Caroline, appears to be bearing fruit.
They are cute enough to pet, but obviously not a good idea. The bears are today's Daily Lift. Cute.
These are indeed bears, the inspiration behind the fictional bear named Paddington. But unlike the famous character, they don't travel as far as London or have access to marmalade.
Nope. Using a trap camera, conservationists have spotted at least 60 of the bears, offering hope for the population of the species considered vulnerable to extinction.
They are the only species of bears native to South America. They live in subtropical regions from Bolivia to Venezuela.
Oh, aren't they so cute?
I don't
have to say, I'm a big fan of the bears.
I don't think they want to be pet, though.
I would 100% pet them. No, I wouldn't, because they would eat me, so I wouldn't. But I would want to.
Thank you for being here the last 2 weeks, Caroline.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. Janet will be back on Monday. Thank you to Riley, to Gary, to Randall, to Holly and Jeff. And Rich.